Welcome back to another episode of Glam Glam Truckers. Today with our special kinda Halloween episode. I'm just dressed up. I am Buse. That is Bees. And today, what are we talking about, Bees?
Today we're going to be talking about D&D. D&D 5th edition in particular. Buse and I are going to be playing in a game coming up soon. And I have never actually played 5th edition before.
Nor have I.
And though I am quite, as you know from a previous episode, I am a student of the history of the game and a student of the history of role-playing games in general. Not, a master of the topic, but definitely I know quite a bit about it. 5th edition was created as a response to 4th edition. Surprise, surprise. 4th edition was created to be able to interact with what they hope would be a computer simulation. Have we talked? Did we talk about this?
Yep, yeah. In our old D&D episode, yeah.
We went over this in an older D&D episode, apparently. And no, I don't just repeat everything Buse says.
It's like
he doesn't
Sigourney
say anything
Weaver in
soon.
Galaxy Quest.
Yes, I would not be like Sigourney Weaver with computer and Galaxy Quest on the ship. So, sorry guys, here we go. 4th edition was created as more of a interaction with a computer. You were required to keep track of so many things. I have an artificial sun that gives everyone in such and such a radius so much of a blessing of this, and they get to add this many dice to this kind of a roll. And then I have this buff that's going on, and did you guys take your bless spell? I give everybody a bless spell. Did you take your bless spell? Did you remember to roll your d6 to add to your bless because of the bless spell? To add to your attack because of the bless. Anyway. There is aspects of that in 5th edition, but 5th edition was really a return to what made 3rd edition good and an expansion into new territory. I like to call 5th edition a superhero RPG more than a traditional medieval fantasy RPG. Any thoughts on that? You kind of look like you're thinking something there.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this discussion before. I do see a little bit of that in 5th edition. For the bit I've read, I've only gone through the player's handbook, taken a touch look into the GM handbook when I was at Barnes & Noble. But I do see that's more specifically because at least in 5th edition, we're not talking 5.5 because while I've quickly glanced through it, I haven't looked at, I was told not to use 5.5 for character creation. So
5.5 is also D&D 2024 for those of you out there who use that nomenclature.
It's completely compatible with 5, but they did change some things for what they felt was balance, but
quite different.
But it works. But it works with all previous, like all the 5th edition stuff and supplements, similar to what they did with 3.5. With 3, it worked with everything, but they tweaked a couple of things here and there. But anyways, I do see what you mean by that. Although even 3 and 3.5 were like that as well, but there were, like when they went through the classes and stuff, there were commoner classes. Like, commoners could be warriors, but not fighters, or artisans or whatever. It's just, they don't really seem to really go into that as much in the player handbook. Maybe they go into it in the GM handbook. I didn't look as closely, but, oh, you went through the GM handbook?
I did not go through the GM handbook, but I had some conversations about it with some people.
Oh, okay, cool. And they don't seem to have like the commoner classes or anything anymore?
There's going to be people watching this video who are going to say how wrong we are about this.
I doubt it. They have to watch the video.
Fair enough. When I went through this and talked to people about stuff like this, there was really no point in having a crafting feat, like getting any of the crafting skills. There's no point to that because it costs just as much money to buy a weapon as it does to make a weapon. And it takes up less game time. And the weapon you make is going to be only as good or better than anything you can buy. Not better. Only as good, not better than anything you can buy.
Yeah. Whereas in 3rd edition, literally you could completely make your character to be like a complete, like almost crafting master with all the feats and stuff as you leveled up, to be able to even make magical weapons and be able to do certain things on it and stuff like that. In this, they just they're back to almost focusing on the
combat.
Yeah, combat, like the action portions of the game, not so much the RPG aspect, like that we tend to focus on a lot, like in some
So
of our games.
the exception to that, of course, is the Artificer. It's an entire class devoted to creating stuff, but even then, it's not what it was in 3.5 or 3.0. It's certainly not.
I
Crafting is
thought,
not what it was. Go ahead.
oh yeah, okay. I was gonna say, Artificer wasn't introduced until 5. It wasn't in 4 or
No,
3.
no, crafting. Crafting is not what it used to be.
Yeah, okay, understood.
I remember building for 3.0, choosing what your profession was a major deal, and it impacted you.
To a degree, yeah, if you wanted it to. Yeah.
It could be significant inside the game, and in 5.0, there's no rules for it. So the focus is far more on combat than on the other aspects of role playing and character creation, which is as far as we've gotten. It may not turn out that way, but the only way to improve a non-combat skill is to add your proficiency to it or increase your
base
you've got
stats
whatever. Yes. So your base stats give you your modifier for your abilities. I think they're called abilities, but your stats, your strength, constitution, dexterity, charisma, intelligence, and wisdom. So those give you a modifier based on what you rolled. And then you also get your proficiency modifier, which is based on your level, and the most you can add to a roll for something like deception or stealth or sleight of hand or insight or whatever, any of those skills, the most you can roll is your whatever that attribute modifier is, plus your proficiency modifier. So for stealth, it would be your dex modifier, plus, if you're proficient in the skill, your proficiency modifier. It's not as easy to level up those skills individually. There's no way to do that besides either adding your proficiency to it or increasing your base stat.
On the plus side, it means that for the most part, all of your class skills, which is what you're pretty much proficient at in general, all your class skills are always at the max of what you can do for your level. Whereas in 3, you could choose to, let's say, if you were a rogue with a lower intelligence and you didn't have as many skill points to keep certain things up, or you wanted to focus on some other skills, you could let your stealth skill or whatever kind of fall behind a bit if you wanted to let's say focus on one of the like on a non-class skill, because I think they pretty much cost double to increase, as opposed to or you can only increase them half a point at a time. It's been a while, something like that. But now it's like, okay, all of your rogue skills or all of your cleric skills or whatever, they're all at the same level. When you're rolling them, assuming they use the same attribute, but you know what I mean. That's what the proficiency bonus is. Literally, it levels up based on your level, because as you get up higher in level, it's just going to continue, as opposed to having to put points in. It does simplify the system, don't get me wrong, but it takes away like the crafting and stuff like that. There's also a whole heck of a lot less feats, and feats are also optional now, depending upon the game you're in. Which,
though, from what I've read, almost everybody uses them.
Yeah,
in one way or another.
And feats are pretty much just like extra abilities, or if not extra abilities, the ways of just a way of improving your character so they're better at something, as opposed to like Star Wars, which made everything skill based. Some of this stuff is more just like feat based and level based. So once you get to a specific level, you can add a feat onto it. Like I already know for my bard, I'm going to be adding the two-handed weapon feat, so I can use a regular weapon and a light weapon at the same time. I believe that's what it does, because I don't want to use two daggers, but yeah.
Yes, the dual wield feat would allow you to use two weapons at the same time, or whatever it's called.
Right, because you can use two weapons at the same time to start off with, but they both have to be light weapons, which makes sense for my character, which is a bard. The starting package in 5.5 had you start with two daggers regardless, Whereas in the other one, it let you start with a dagger, had you start with a dagger and like a longsword or a rapier or whatever. Which again, not a problem. And since the rapier does the same amount of damage as 2 daggers would do, I guess it works out. But,
So tell everybody how your whole process went. Well, let me give a little groundwork here. Sunday night, one of our buddies couldn't play in our regular game. So we were looking for something else to do. We do this all online. And one of us couldn't play games because they're dealing with some carpal tunnel, I think it was. Anyway, doesn't matter. So we couldn't do what we normally do, which is just play video games when we can't tabletop, virtual tabletop. So we started talking about it, and our friend, Fiona, thank you. I'm trying to remember what nickname she used when she was on here, who was here for the Transformers RPG. He volunteered to run a D&D 5.0 campaign. And so we started looking at, that's when I really broke out that's when you guys broke out the players' books and D&D and Beyond and all that, and we started looking it over. So, tell us your story, Buse, my bardic friend.
I tend to play semi-scoundrelly characters.
Semi.
In general.
I think that's fair.
When it comes to paper and pencil RPGs. In video games, I'll probably play anything, and I'm actually more likely to play a tank or paladin more of recently.
Which you're very good at now.
I appreciate it. Thank you. But for paper and pencil stuff, I think it's also like part of it's an RPG thing. Also part of it's like my actual personality comes out. As a person, I will firmly admit I have a disdain for authority. I hope my boss isn't watching. And I have a disdain for authority, and I am, at least in my mind, I'm very sarcastic and belligerent. And if people know me and they're friends with me, that comes out as well too. Now, that's how I typically have played most of my characters, and it tends to work well for a rogue or occasionally a bard. Now, the last bard I played, which Bees was in the game with me, I actually tried to specifically go against my normal type, and I did actually a pretty good job of it. I can play something different, and as a GM, I've done it plenty of times. But if I'm just having fun, it's easier just to let it all go and be myself to the extreme. Myself with no filter, for lack of a better way of putting it. But anyway.
By the way, I was playing a bear fighter. It wasn't a straight bear. It was some kind of random bear racial that was just so broken at 3.5. I was basically... It was a Wookiee and Han Solo is what it was. I was Chewbacca. He was Han Solo.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But because Bees likes to look for ways to break stuff, as we've discussed before.
This will come out when I start telling my side of the story. Go on.
Yeah, which is why you didn't... No, okay, yeah, I'll let you tell your own side. So anyways, I did that. I looked through briefly, and I just like, you know what? A bard is like a lesser rogue who can also cast in many ways, in my opinion, in D&D. And it not entirely the same, but you can do
time out.
Go ahead.
You do know that there's actually a subclass of rogues that are casters now.
No, I didn't. But
I didn't either at the time. Go on.
But that was kind of how I looked at it. And also, it's kind of fun. And by making my character the way I did, I also probably shouldn't be the group leader, which bards sometimes end up being the group spokesman in games I have observed or played in before because of their charisma stat. Pretty much. You tend to send the person who has the higher charisma stat to talk to other people because they're the ones who have persuade and cons and stuff like that higher, or whatever it falls under. But
deception,
yeah, deception. However, I figured, why not have that, like, those abilities, but be the type of person that nobody would want in charge? And that's where I came up with my character. Additionally, it was kind of decided that we were going to all start together as opposed to multiple people meet in a tavern to start off with, and we become a team that way. We're actually already a team. We're playing as brothers for the most part, and I'm the youngest brother who is also a troublemaker.
Well, we may want to talk about that.
I mean, you guys said I was the youngest. I don't care if I'm the youngest or not. I'm still the troublemaker.
Oh, you're definitely the troublemaker. Or a troublemaker.
But it was decided that for the most part, our father gave us a boat or a ship for us to sail on. The person who plays Crenshaw in the other game, he pretty much took
oldest brother.
He's our oldest brother and took all of the requirements so that he can pretty much be manning the boat. So we didn't have to have an NPC who could do the boat stuff for us. And yeah, I just wanted to be like an entertainer. The way my character is he carouses in bars, hangs out with the sailors who come into port, has fun, and then just makes trouble at least in his hometown. He made a lot of trouble, and it ended with one of the reasons the father wanted him to leave was that he had broken into the mayor's office and moved all the furniture to the ceiling and glued it there.
So I need to understand how systems work. That's just something I've got. That's part of who I am. I don't like playing a game I don't understand, probably because I got taunted a lot about that from family and friends as a child, and in turn turned into the gamer you didn't want to play against because I'd always win. I mean, you'd have a good time playing against me, but I try to win. And I say that like nobody else tries to win, but I'm very good at understanding rules and using them. I'm a min-maxer. I think that's probably the best way to put it. Fuse is kind of giving me a weird look right now.
No, I'm agreeing with you.
Oh, you're agreeing with me? Yeah, I'm a min-maxer. I don't always min-max. I'm also a role player, and I take both of that very seriously. Up until the moment the game starts, I'm trying to find every advantage I can get and plotting out how my character is going to go or the direction generally I want it to go in. But once the game starts, I'm seriously into playing the character and enjoying them. And I've studied 5th edition previous to this to try and get a feel for how it works. I've studied other D20 systems like the Transformer system that came out from, I think it's Renegade Games.
And we talked about that briefly, yeah.
Yes. And I got a feel for how that works, and it's based off 5th edition. But that doesn't mean I understand it to the level where I'd be able to break the game. So I started reading a lot. And after a week of this, because that was last Sunday and we're filming on Saturday, I'm not even close to being able to break the game consistently. I've watched theory crafting videos. I've read through a number of different, just wizards alone have too many different possible builds. And that's not, I mean, that has probably more possible builds and more variation in it than any other class because of all the spells they have access to, all of which significantly change the play style of the wizard. And I'm not just talking about your subclass, folks. I'm talking about the sheer number of spells completely change the way a wizard can be played. It's also true for sorcerers and almost every class that casts spells can be changed a lot, except for real.
I was going to say bards too. I mean, if you only have access to, I mean, one, you can only memorize a certain amount of spells. Now, I believe wizards can have access in the end to more spells because they're having to put them in their spell book, but they have to buy them, or at least in the past, that's how it was. I haven't read 5.
They still buy them, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they pay for them.
Right. As opposed to the sorcerer.
Good.
I was going to say, as opposed to the sorcerer who just knows them, but then also has access to less because of that. But yeah.
It's basically what they did here.
And bards are more like sorcerers, and I just know them when I hit the level. But yeah, you can, depending on what spells you choose, you can be completely different. You could have, but bards also tend to be kind of the whole jack of all trades thing. So I can focus on more
Then
off. Go ahead.
why are all the memes then about bards seducing everything?
Because of charisma. I mean, persuade is a is one of those skills that most of them choose. I mean, I guess you could probably do the same thing with a sorcerer, but I'm just thinking of the Viva La Dirt League video with him playing a high charisma character.
Yes, he seduces everything in sight, starting with
Yeah.
the NPCs. Even
Yeah,
a fighter, like a fighter build right now, how you go based off your subclass, there's a lot less options than with a wizard or a sorcerer, but there's even fighters who specialize in casting. But there's archer fighters, which was something that in 3.0 was not really a thing. It was available. They used ranged weapons, but to be able to do as much damage as a ranger wasn't really an option. Well, there's a ranged monk class now. Oh yes, and apparently all that they're both viable in their damage capacity with a ranger. Maybe not a gloom mist, gloom night, gloom water ranger, whatever the gloom one is. They're supposed to be the deadliest of all ranged combatants, as far as secular, non-mystical, even though they do have some spellcasting capacity. So yeah, there's just too much for me to be able to put together in a week.
Well, it's not like we're starting till next week, so
Well, you never know. So anyway, another week. I don't want to spend this much time studying D.
You don't have to. You can just go through, be like, you know what? I think I'll play a fighter and just make the fighter. You don't have to read everything else about all the other stuff available. Just choose it, go through, and just have fun with whatever. That's how I play.
You don't even know me.
I do. I'm saying you could. I mean, maybe you can't, but the general you.
Man, anyway, been on D&D Beyond, been on a couple of different wikis, trying to get a feel for this. I've got the general ideas behind things, and luckily in 5th edition, it is as many options as there are. It is very much so you make a couple of choices early on, and it's cookie cutter. It's preschool. I'll give you an example from gaming, from WoW. In classic WoW, when you're building up your talent tree for whatever class you're playing, you can choose from 3 trees, and as you go through it, you have all sorts of options. And then as it progressed and they kept adding to it, your options went from like a tree more like a pyramid, where you picked one thing and it focused you down. Eventually you could only choose one of those options, and you were limited in what you could actually increase with your talent tree.
Yeah, they kind of simplified it towards the end. Like, different classes just did different things. Whereas in the beginning, like, for example, shamans, while they would never be like as good as like a warrior as a raid tank, they could actually work stuff up so that they could be a decent group tank. Stuff like that.
Yep. We saw the same thing with Star Wars: The Old Republic. Haven't played that in over a year now, though. They also simplified things a lot in Star Trek Online in deference to your costume. Beam me up. Anyway, so this is very streamlined. The options you get that make things crazy come more towards your spell and your feat. And I'm breathing through all that. I'm probably going with a Dow Genie Warlock. Do you know what that means, buddy?
I do.
All right. I know we talked about it a little bit.
Yeah, I had the Genie one wasn't included in the original handbook, so I'm assuming you got that from like D&D Beyond or whatever. But yeah.
Yeah. Actually, dnd5e.wiki.com.
Cool.
Excellent resource. Wanted to throw it out there. I'm not a huge fan of D&D Beyond for reasons we won't go into here. A lot of it having to do with how Hasbro is trying to monetize the game. And it's also why they make things so complicated, because it's almost impossible for one person to keep track of every single rule and spell and skill and everything that goes into playing D&D. So having a resource like D&D Beyond and make people pay for or subscribe to it is part of their monetary system. Not that you have to buy everything on D&D Beyond, but there is a lot of things that do cost money there. Anyway, so yeah, I found the Genie subclass. Everybody said make it Hexblade. I understand why they said make a Hexblade after reading through it, but what appeals to me about the Genie is the role-playing options. And I'm not saying there's no role-playing options in D&D 5th edition. There's a lot, and some of the spells are really designed for creativity, especially the illusion spells. And I mean especially the illusion spells. But also, when you have a familiar, how you control your familiar, what you do with it, use of invisibility, use of teleportation, use of telekinesis or mage hand for the cantrip. I love the fact that they added in cantrips. The other thing I'm really tempted to do right now is just go with a straight evocation wizard.
What do you
blow
mean?
everything up?
You mean by you love how they added in cantrips? What do you mean?
Cantrips were in 3rd edition, right?
They were in 3rd edition, yeah.
I just love I love cantrips.
Oh, okay.
Did I say added in? I apologize, all you truckers out there.
That's why I was confused. I'm like, we've had.
I love what they've done with cantrips in 5th edition, especially for warlocks, because one of the things I like about warlocks is what gives their class a lot of their flavor is their eldritch invocations, I think they're called. And they're the little things that you just add on that allow you to do stuff that the other classes do, but you can pull from all different sorts of. There's a lot. It ends up being not a jack of all trades, but you can build something very unique based off your invocations. And then you get a lot less spells, but they're all cast at your highest level. So if you're careful with how you choose your spells, you can be quite deadly. And then you get the best. Your invocations, in turn, can impact your cantrip Eldritch Blast, which will allow you to have, like every other warlock out there, a devastating Eldritch Blast, which is going to be your attack. Unless you're a Hexblade or a Pact of the Blade warlock, your main attack is going to be, what you're going to be doing most of the time is Eldritch Blast! Yeah, and with Agonizing Blast on top of it, you automatically get to add your Charisma modifier to your Eldritch Blast, which is a 10d plus whatever your modifier is. I'm sorry, a d10 plus whatever your modifier is. And unlike other cantrips there, when Eldritch Blast, other damaging cantrips, when Eldritch Blast gets to the point where you would add another die to the roll with something like Ray of Frost or whatever it's called, there's a few others. There's a fire one, there's an ice one, there's a necrotic damage one, there's a radiant damage one. Eldritch Blast uses force, which is almost nobody resists, and on top of that, or has resistance to, and it doesn't just add another die. So you roll your attack, and if you hit, you roll 2 dice instead of 1 die. No, with Eldritch Blast, you get another Eldritch Blast to fire at another target or the same target, and that Eldritch Blast gets that same bonus from Agonizing Blast, the invocation. So by the time you're firing 5 Eldritch Blasts all in one action, each one of those is also getting your Agonizing Blast. It's also getting your modifier, and then you can push. There's an invocation to push with it, an invocation to pull with it, an invocation to slow people down with it. And Eldritch Blast is the thing that really drew me to Warlocks. And then as a Genie Warlock, I get a magical artifact from my patron that I made my deal with to get my powers. And that artifact, I'm going to go with a ring. And you can actually go inside your own artifact, hang out there for as many hours as you have proficiency. So you start with 2 proficiency points at level 1. So level 1, I can go hang out in this 20-foot by 40-foot, this 20-foot radius, 20-foot high room. So that's a 40-foot round and 20 feet high room that exists inside my ring. Fuse's Bard could carry my ring for me.
Yep.
Or if you go Pact of the Chain, I'll have a familiar, and that familiar I can control with my invocations, and that could carry my ring for me. So yeah, it's there's a lot of chicanery I can get up with as a genie. Additionally, at level 1, I get to add my proficiency bonus in whatever. I went with the Earth one because I like the spells that are available to me. So what was I trying to say here? Oh, so I would add a die, or I think it's my proficiency bonus once a round for one attack. I can add on top of that my proficiency bonus in bludgeoning damage. So I would do D plus my wisdom modifier plus my proficiency bonus, or it's 1d8 or whatever it is, in damage for my one attack by the time I'm level 2. Not bad. Not the greatest, most damaging thing you can do in theory crafting, but this is straight up just level 2. You chose Agonizing Blast and Genie, and you're there. So I thought that was pretty cool. Plus, I get Fly at level 6.
Not bad.
Kind of. Yeah, you get, it's limited, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a decent speed. It's an okay speed, and you can pretty much hover in the air if you want to. Mm-hmm. Probably close to the, I was going to say, for anybody who played or plays City of Heroes, City of Villains, it's similar to the hover, actually really similar to the hover power in that, where you can, where you go slowly or whatever, but you can, you can move through the air.
So anyway, that was my thought process. I'm also tempted again, like I said, to make a straight evoking wizard and just do ridiculous amounts of damage. And I do mean ridiculous amounts of damage. But I don't know. I have some defensive options here as a warlock. There's a lot of control available to you. It's an interesting class. I can't. It's hard for me to make a decision when I don't have all the facts. And I know there's more facts out there available to me.
Well, there's a lot of books out there that have come out since 2014, so there is a lot of facts out there.
Oh, yes.
And years will do that.
So all you truckers out there, anyone out there in Truckerland who has built in 5.0 before, which is probably a lot of you guys, write down your favorite build, your favorite theory craft. Write down in the comments below. Tell us what your favorite class was to play, what you like about 5.0, what you preferred about 3.0. But we didn't start comparing it to other systems, really. But you're more than welcome to do that. And down below, tell us what you like, what you don't like. You can tell us how stupid we are and what we don't understand, and I will read it.
All right. Well, I mean, I also chose Bard for Vicious Mockery. I'll just say that.
I thought it was for prestidigitation.
Other classes can have prestidigitation. Vicious Mockery is Bard only. And after watching the perception check video by Tom Cardy, it was kind of in my mind.
All right, truckers, be safe out there.
All right, we will see you, truckers.